This is the Great Johannes speaking for yet another live stream episode. I'm playing some music in the background. If it's too loud, you'll tell me. I have a series of topics and things that I want to discuss. I've got some information in front of me on my screen, right? So, let's go through and over all the things, right? I see the first people coming into the live stream. I'll be recording this and I'll be posting it again to my my YouTube channel as usual, and perhaps also here on TikTok. We'll see about it. How is everybody doing? You know, I made a video, the last video of mine that was taken down. The gist of it was that the United Kingdom, you know, run by Premier Keir Starmer, shows us that multiculturalism is like a gunpowder keg, a powder keg, right? And diversity is explosive, and Islam is diffuse. But it's the politicians, the white people's politicians, who are playing with fire, right? And yet, if any kind of spark were to light the fuse, they're going to blame the white people, the white working classes mostly. You have a situation where a ruling elite hates its own people so much that they're willing to sacrifice them basically in rape and genocide. That's what the UK is doing. It's just absolutely disgusting, very sickening, you know? But it's the general trend everywhere in the world. Our ruling classes see the working classes as change, like money that they can throw away or burn for other causes, right? There is no such thing as noblesse oblige anymore. They don't care about us. It's as though your parents were sacrificing their own children and enjoying it and laughing at them while doing so. That's what the leaders of Europe are doing. That's what everybody in the Western world is doing, right? It's unfathomable. Yeah, some say that Elon Musk is just a weirdo doing something called the Bellamy salute. I don't really care about Elon's salute so much. It's a bit of a... he's just weird. Like, how come you never see these elite people do something like this? They never do it. You wonder why? Is there any hope for us? Yeah, you're talking to it. I'm the hope. Where do I leave my water bottle? I'll leave this over here. All right, so yeah, thanks for loving my videos. Yeah. The question is how to go forward. I was speculating today whether or not I should start doing public speeches. But I live in the Netherlands. Okay, I can reach both an international and or a Dutch audience, depending on who's interested. Someone asked me about it as well, if I would do public speeches or meetings with my followers nearby. We could organize stuff in Europe, of course. But I was already thinking about how to design the visuals. If I want to do public speeches, what would I want it to look like, right? I, for example, wouldn't be interested in starting my speeches in beer cellars or so. I realize that in the Netherlands there's a lot of small churches that are basically empty, nobody visits them. So I thought, why not associate myself more with the religious aspect of it all and start doing speeches in small churches and drawing in crowds, right? And then from there, always build that connection that what we're doing is not just for the economy. We're not just here to make money, as Donald Trump would say. He just wants to make big deals for big bucks. And I'm not interested in that at all. I might even be the polar opposite. What I want is a sort of spiritual connection, or to rekindle that spiritual flame that we used to experience as a people. The thing that held us together even when the surroundings were bleak and gloomy, right? Right, and so I started thinking, well, I would do something like that. I could start doing public speeches, but then of course I also need security. I need protection, because imagine I organize something and we have like 50 people or so showing up, and half of them are going to be journalists in undercover, and the other half are going to be police and Secret Service undercover, or Antifa, right? So how would I organize that? I would need to get in touch with people who are willing to play my security guards. At first, it would have to be free of charge. Maybe you charge everybody who wants to listen 10 euros. But would people really pay me 10 euros? Maybe the ones who are motivated to actually come to my public speeches, they would give a tenner, so I can afford, security, protection. And it's not like I'm afraid of Antifa. It's just that if it's one-on-one, I'm fine. But if it's 1 against 10, right, I could lose an eye or a hand or something, right? I'm not interested in that. So that's why it's perfectly normal to have security protection. So we need to start building out an actual movement that can defend itself against bad actors, bad people, right? So for starters, I would avoid speaking anywhere near Amsterdam or so, or Rotterdam. I wouldn't even go there. I would just go to the other side of the country, like Nijmegen or Utrecht, Eindhoven, places like that is where I would go to do my speeches, away from the sphere of the political center in the Netherlands, where you have all the far left weirdos hanging out there. They might not be bothered traveling too far out, right? And maybe the sort of people who listen to my speeches don't even live in places like Amsterdam anyway, right? So I see lots of your comments coming in. I've got some more topics prepared that I will go over. There's also the idea that I should start doing daily live streams, depending on how much I have to say, because one thing I don't want to do is I don't want to be the news guy who reads the news. That's not what I'm doing. I know reading the news would get me more viewers because it's news and people always listen to the news. But I want to be more about preparing a movement, building a movement. What are we going to do? And that means it would be better for me to speak to a smaller number of more motivated people than to speak to a larger crowd of people who aren't ever going to do anything anyway, right? It's better to start talking to the ones who are motivated to go and do something, right? To stand up for ourselves, right? Yeah, we're looking for a country that will be safe, but yeah, it's going to be our country. I'm reading a backlog of comments here, yeah. If you pay close attention, they always say God and never Christ. Which God are they talking about? Yeah, that's what I said, right? Yeah, there was this crime. I was going to talk about it as well. The crime in Germany, just like in Southport, UK last year. Now we had another killing of children, or at least one child died, if I'm correct, in a German town of Aschaffenburg. An Afghan man launched a knife attack on a daycare group, killing 2 people, right? To me, it's not so much about bringing you the news. I just told you about this. It's more about, what on earth can we do about it? So here's a related piece of information. Did you know that in Japan in the 1980s, they absorbed 15,000 immigrants from Iran? There was some kind of revolution going on in those days. Japan opened its borders to accept immigrants. But guess what? The immigrants became a problem very quickly. And then the Prime Minister of Japan, Minister Kiichi Miyazawa, deported them all. I do not recall anyone calling the Japanese people racist for deporting the Iranians who were misbehaving in their country. Now, why would everybody always call us racist if we would have the same response to something like this? If we have a group, a demographic, say, I don't know, the 14% who commit 70% of the rapes, for example, why not just deport them all? And why would people call us racist if we do? Actually, the whole racism game is about money, right? You understand that people want access to our economies, and if they can't get it because they don't have the talent or the qualities, they'll just call us racist and then play our emotions to give them welfare, right? So that's what it's all about. It's just a game. It's a stupid game that we shouldn't even be listening to. I said so before. We should take the R word and make it our own so that only white people can say the R word, right? racism and racist, right? Can I give you a little moral boost for your night shift? No, I don't know how to do that right now, but know that God is with you. Right? We're in this together. We're not alone. We're people all over the world, but we're connected now, right? American here, SOS, yeah, save our souls, yeah. I'm starting right now. I'm starting a movement right now. We're just thinking about the practical aspects of it, where to start. I thought I will start speaking in small church buildings to associate myself with the spiritual, the divine, and not so much with politics, which I think nowadays is only about money and corporations. And I want to make that clear distinction that I do not represent anything that cares about making money. That's not for me. You can make money, whatever, but it's not what we need anymore. We need something else. We need something far stronger and far more ruthless, which is the divine and not money. You installed an auto clicker to help get the likes up. Okay, I don't know if that's gonna work, man. Maybe they'll punish me for it, but you know, I don't mind. Just try it. Go ahead. You know, you have respect for my work. Thank you very much. All right. Right, okay, I get it. Yeah, why not combine both a news channel and like the movement at the same time? Yeah, to some degree I'll be discussing news. It's just I don't want to be just a news guy. I want to talk about, you know, how do I motivate people? How do I get people together? You know, how do we rally people legally without getting in trouble? Yeah, I need to talk about things like that, of course, right? I saw a very great explanation recently of what the whole Kamala versus Trump thing was really about. Kamala is the woman who tells you all the things that you hate, like she's gonna open the borders and she's gonna like take your guns away, right, in the USA, and then they put Trump opposite of that so that everybody will vote Trump or he will win. And that the whole thing is a show. What I mean to say, it's the whole election show. It's just a setup. It's just a setup. It's all fake, right? It was by design. They felt now is the time to do more wars for Israel, so we'll get Trump in, right? East Asians are ruthless, yeah. They're trying to subvert them, yeah. Same with us, you know. I don't really know what phalangism is, man. That's that Spanish thing or so. It's possibly like a sort of Catholic fascism. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really into the isms. I wouldn't describe myself with an ism. It's just not really necessary. Did I major in philosophy? No. I wanted to study philosophy, but in the end I ended up reading hundreds and hundreds of books in philosophy anyway, so I consider myself a philosopher by heart, by nature, by birth, so to speak. Just like Socrates, you know. You can be, you know, if you study philosophy nowadays, you'll end up being an academic philosopher and not really a real philosopher, I would say. But the topic for debate today is going to be, should we white men go to war? What's the role of men in society? That's what I want to talk about. I have a whole list of topics coming up. It's going to be about, you know, should we turn Europe into a theocracy that benefits the male urges to conquer and dominate, so to speak, right? But before I get there, I wanted to talk a little bit about inflation. We are all suffering inflation. The prices are going up. And they all justify it in the news saying, well, your salaries are also going up. That isn't quite true. The top salaries are going up faster than the bottom half of salaries. So if you're in the bottom half of earners in any society in the West, you are probably lagging behind inflation, and that means the poorer people are the ones harmed the most by inflation, right? And another problem is that your savings is devalued. If there's 20% inflation and you didn't accumulate more savings because the interests were 0%, right? Then you lost 20% in value. Your savings are worth a lot less. So you're being robbed. The whole point of inflation is actually this. It's deliberate. You introduce inflation so that savings are devalued and the bottom earners don't make enough money. The top earners make a little more, but prices are going up, and so everybody is incentivized to consume more, and that's what inflation is really about. It's about artificially inflating consumption by getting more people to consume stuff they don't really need, right? And that is a telltale signal of a dying economy, really. Economies with inflation have inflation because they haven't been doing well, and the rich class hasn't been making money enough money compared to, say, other places. China is growing. Chinese rich people, China also has billionaires, and they're making more money than we do in the West, and so we need more immigrants. We need, if you look at the world from the perspective of these tech oligarchs like Elon Musk, they think in terms of, yeah, we need to populate Mars so we can tax the Martians. That's how they think. They think in terms of, where do we get more people to tax? Bring in more H-1B visa Indians so we can tax them, like 15 million of them, we can tax them. That's how they think. They think in terms of how much can we rip people off to bring them in. And so that's why they also love inflation, because it forces people to spend more money, right? Hold on, there's a strange troll here. Let me read at your back. Do you have any degrees? Of course I have degrees. I have a Master of Science degree, MSc, and a BSc, of course, Bachelor of Science degrees. How do you fix inflation? Yeah, you would have to cut loose from globalism and have more like a labor-based society, like what the Germans were trying to do in World War II. The 1930s, they built a labor-based society that wasn't based on financial growth or financial speculation, just on labor. We should back the euro by labor, yeah. Somebody just mentioned it, yeah. The banks are definitely guilty. Central banks are playing the role of... another aspect of inflation is, if you have rich people losing money, they can offload these losses to the common people by basically, through taxation, robbing them of their savings and their assets, right? You are from Kazakhstan, but you live in the USA, and you say that life for average people is hard. Yeah, I believe that. It definitely is. Same in the Netherlands. If you're a working class person, you have to live paycheck to paycheck. Your life is no good, right? Why is there inflation in the Fortnite item shop? Okay. If the prices are going up, it's like a FOMO, the fear of missing out, then you will buy now because you don't want to buy more expensive later, right? All right. We should back the euro. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what do you suggest for... All right. We become autarkic, yeah. Martin Heidegger is my favorite philosopher, alongside Ernst Jünger, the author of Storm of Steel. In the early days, Ernst Jünger and Heidegger were promoting a sort of aristocratic ideal, yeah. That's what I support. Later, I feel Heidegger became more socialistic, yeah. But maybe that happens to old people, huh? They soften their views, but all right. Western economies, despite being so rich, have a massive burn rate in terms of the money we have to spend to keep operations going, to keep the economy going, is nearing 80%, 90% of what people produce. 100%. Eventually you reach a point, which I call the point of no return, is when you can no longer afford your own society, your own complexity. Imagine nowadays in the USA, as in every Western country. In the US, you have like 1 million children under age 5 who are foreign born, who don't speak English. They have to merge into the English speaking system, and that's not going to happen, is it? Right? Half of them will simply never learn to speak English. And what you're getting is the complexity of languages, cultures, religions becomes something inaffordable. You just can't keep it going anymore. And that's when collapse sets in. The complexity starts to unravel, fall apart, things will break down. Maybe electricity will clock out and you won't have electricity for ages or never again, right? And you get to a point where you will have to fall back on skills and competencies that your great-grandparents used to have, like spinning thread into wool or something like that. And we are nearing this. I'm absolutely convinced that this modern world is not tenable. It will not survive. We're not going to have people living on Mars, even though Elon Musk during the Trump administration will probably want to land a rocket on Mars or something, right? And if it fails, maybe they will fake it with AI nowadays. Nowadays, nothing is real anymore. So they can just give you all the propaganda they want you to believe in. And I think part of the reason why Musk has to go to Mars is because the American people have got very little left to believe in terms of trusting the technology, right? You know, Elon Musk had the Neuralink system that he implants in people's brains. Turns out, if you get a Neuralink implanted in your brain, that thing starts to move around in your skull. Also, the connections, the threads that are supposed to connect to your motor system, for example, they are not solid connections. These connections over time are ejected by your biology. They are basically disconnected. And so over time, the Neuralink very quickly stops working. Then you have the Hyperloop. Remember the Hyperloop? It was supposed to be this tunnel from California to New York City or something like that. And then you could just shoot yourself at like 3,000 miles an hour from one side of the continent to another in a Hyperloop. Of course you can't build it. Every engineer in the world knows you can't build a tube that long that is watertight and never has accidents in it. Impossible. They could have thought it through, but they still went on along with some fake demo, like a 2-mile demo where you have to drive really slowly, like you're in a theme park, right? And they do that. Elon Musk does all these kinds of things to hype things up. Basically, he is a hype machine that knows that that's how you make a lot of money, hyping shit up. Basically, every idea he had is a shitcoin. Like the Cybertruck, Ford sold over 500,000 F-150s last year. Or, I mean, including F-250s, F-350s as well, the whole F line. They sold over 500,000 of these pickup trucks in the USA, right? Cybertrucks, only 30,000. So it's because they're electric. Nobody wants electric. So the whole idea of electric self-driving cars and so on is bullshit if nobody wants them. Nobody's buying them, right? This revolution isn't happening, but they're pretending as though we have entered the age of the future and we've got electric airplanes soon, right? That run on solar, right? Planes that run on solar, right? All of that is nonsense. It's not working. But we have to keep hyping up all these illusions because people buy it. They can buy stock. It's basically a shitcoin. It's just another shitcoin like the Trump coin or the Melania coin. They're all shitcoins, but people invest in it. Tesla is worth Tesla's stock market value totals the same value of the next 29 car companies combined, but they're not selling cars. It's a hype. You've bought into the hype. It was just a stock market shitcoin, and that's how the Weimar Republic started. It was all speculation, and then it crashes, and before you know it, a loaf of bread will cost $8 billion, because that's what happened to the Germans in the 1920s and 30s. They had a loaf of bread for 8 billion Deutschmark. Of course, nobody could afford it, right? So you're back to trading goods that you own. You're back to, you know, selling your furniture in exchange for a piece of chicken, right? So it just doesn't work. There was this author on Substack called Shane Simonson who goes over all these examples, telling you that basically everything that Elon Musk was doing is a hype. He didn't deliver. He doesn't really deliver. It's all based on money. Like Twitter X is supposed to have 1 billion users. Remember, he said we're going to have 1 billion users. Twitter X is not profitable. It's not profitable. So why does he still have it? Well, it's a propaganda tool now for the Trump administration, right? I'm gonna go through your backlog of your comments over here because I can see them on my screen, right? Yeah, anti-Semitism, of course it rose by 200%. It should have risen by 2000%, right? Would you consider yourself a capitalist? No, I'm not in the business of just making money for the sake of money. This is nonsense. We need an economy that achieves our goals for us, so that instead of having people serve the economy should serve us. So the goal isn't making money for the sake of making money. The goal is, okay, we want to build a theocracy in Europe. What do we need? We need this. Then we go and make that money to do what we want to do, right? Or maybe we want to rule the whole world. Okay, then we need this money. But the goal isn't making money. And that is what has happened to the United States. It's why I dislike the USA so much. It's just a money-based cult. The thing that Oswald Spengler used to warn of in his book, The Decline of the West. Everything becomes a money cult, and eventually people will want a strongman leader. But it's not Donald Trump. Trump is not yet the emperor and won't be. Although from the looks of it, if you look at that steel face of Baron Trump, maybe he will be an emperor. I think he's going to be very different from Trump. Musk is mad as a hatter, yeah, maybe. Would you bring back the Templar order? Something like it. Maybe what Europe needs is religiously motivated death squads going around solving problems, right? So I was reading a book, I don't have it with me. I was reading a book called about the Celtics and the Germanics, Kelten und Germanen in German. It's a German book by Jan de Vries. And he speaks of how the Celtic peoples in Western Europe used to have a system that was basically a theocracy, where you have a priestly class led by one high priest who rules the whole society. The priests rule the whole society. They determine the law. They determine who gets to be executed, who is banished, and so on. And what I found so interesting about this is that this priestly class, working in the shadows, would often employ kings and princes and chieftains in the front on stage. Basically, you would have stage actors pretending to be kings or heroes and so on, right? While the real power was always in the hands of the priestly class. And I think, would that be a better solution for us in Europe? Instead of having a capitalist system where the people who have the money buy the politics, we need a system where it's really a priestly class deeply devoted to their connection to a certain god, right? And then they rule the society from a spiritual foundation rather than from an economic foundation. The economic Homo economicus, in my view, can go extinct. I don't care. So then what is the potential for a theocracy arising in Europe if we would base it on Christianity? Something like it has been done, of course, the ancient Byzantine Empire, started or run by Emperor Constantine, right? In Constantinople. Could we try this now again in, say, Europe by rebuilding the Holy Roman Empire? Say we make Vienna the capital again, right? But we clean it up, or we might make it even look nicer, right? And we transformed all of Europe away from a money-based cult toward a more religiously inspired cult. Hold on. Right, back then the priestly class were seen as the real leaders because they had the authority of the divine. And you know why this is so? You know why priestly people, the priestly classes used to have the real power? Is because they offered the connection between the living and the dead, between the people and their ancestors. And if you win the authority of your ancestors, you are in charge of the people. Not the way it is now. We live in such a globalistic time now. Europeans are required now to go to war for Ukraine against Russia. Zelensky asked for 200,000 European peacekeeping soldiers, right? Meaning cannon fodder, to die for him, right? So we're fighting Russia, but what's it really about? What's this war in Ukraine really about? It's about the Ukrainian resources. $2 trillion worth of resources, raw materials are buried underneath the soil there in Ukraine, which is beneficial to Europe, German industry? No, hell no. It's for the Americans. The Americans want access to those resources. They'll probably sell them to China. China will produce goods and then they'll sell it labeled as designed in California, like Apple or something, right? And then they can sell us more cell phones. But who are they selling to? If the Europeans are dying and aging, we're dying in war and our old people are dying off, who are they going to sell their next versions of the iPhone to? Well, to the Indians. They're going to mass migrate Indians into Europe by the hundreds of millions, right? And then sell them. So do you see what's happening in this globalistic time? Everything is connected. And so you are required to fight to defend resources that are profiting Americans as they sell goods to Indians. Then why the fuck are we Europeans doing the dying? We're not going to do this anymore. Why are Ukrainian men dying with their faces lying down in the mud in some cold place in eastern Ukraine if all they're doing is handing Indian people new iPhones? That's not a reason for us to go to war. This nonsense has to end, man. We need to bring back some fucking sense in what we are doing in this world. Us Europeans, we're not born to serve foreign interests. We are not here to die for other people's profits and wealth. We need to return to ourselves and realize Europe has a God, and we will fight for that God in defense of ourselves. And that means we should be fighting diversity, multiculturalism, immigration, and Islam, not Russians, right? If anything, we should have diplomatic ties with the Russians so we can have peace with them while we clear out our towns and our cities and our countries in Europe. That's what needs to be done. Anybody else is just a money slave. You're just working for money. So this brings me to this question that should white men even go to war at all for countries that hate them? Why would you fight for the country like the Netherlands or France or Germany? These countries outright hate their own white population. Why would you fight for them? You're not going to fight for them. So the propaganda is going to be all about, we're fighting to defend your family. No, you're not. We're destroying our families at home. We're being replaced by immigrants, right? There's no reason to do this anymore. But we can have reasons, we can find valid reasons to wage war. So I'm not against war, I'm against the wrong war. That's what this is. This is all wrong. What is really a true and valid cause for Europeans to fight for? It would be our independence from the world. That we stop being America's bitch, right? And also stop being Russia's pet slave or something. That we can stand on our own 2 feet and realize we've got 700 million white people living in Europe today. If we would somehow get women into housing, affordable housing, start having tons of kids again, Europe could be transformed into a sort of Spartan warrior state, right? A theocratic Spartan warrior state ruled by the priests, where we no longer work for money, but we work for dominance, we work for strength, we work for our inner validations, our skills, our competencies, our desire to live a heroic life. That's what it should always be about. And this brings me a little bit to another topic of the role of men in society in general. On the one hand, you have like a cult of feminists who just want to turn men into women. They want to domesticate men, basically. Let's see if I can open this. I have a book over here, an ebook, PDF. It's called Transforming Men by Jeff Dench. You may find it somewhere on LibGen, Library Genesis. Changing Patterns of Dependency, right? I read a whole bit of this book, and it's let's see, it was published in 1996. Hold on. You know what's so annoying about this Adobe is that it opens the... Wait, I'll just do it like this now. All right. Feminism is communism, yeah. So it's all about feminists want to turn men into women by making them less independent, making them care more about the community, and so on, investing more in emotional responsibilities and so on. Whereas young men, what do all young men want to do? They want to travel and roam free with their backpack or something, right? Or if you have like a van or something, do van life for a bit. Every man loves this idea of, you know, leaving society for a bit, right? And feminists want to break that. They don't want men to have any kind of freedoms like that. They just want the whole idea of manhood probably erased. Anyway, you can read that book. It's all about how the feminists look at men. They hate it that men, for example, they say that when men become the providers of their families, like they become the pater familias, the head of the household, right? They hate that. They want that to disappear. They want perhaps women to be in charge of the household and keep men as slaves or something. What else would you want them for, right? It's what feminism wants, I think, would be the end of humanity, right? Should non-white Americans leave America? Isn't it more of a better message to say that what if white Americans moved to the northern states and made them their own and then started over with a completely new nation? What about that, huh? And then you can even cut California out, right? It's not about retreating, you know, it's about what do you want to do as a people, all right? And are you motivated to do it? Yeah, did they lower our testosterone levels? Yeah, maybe they did, right? By the way, did you know that testosterone levels are not related to the age of a man? Testosterone levels are related to your level of activity. If you live a very active life, you go swimming, skating, lifting. Weightlifting is of course very important for testosterone. But men who lift in their 50s have a lot more testosterone than the men who don't lift in their 20s. So it's about lifting, sports activities, and so on. If you live an active lifestyle, you will have more testosterone, right? And that doesn't mean you're going to grow a big jaw. That's irrelevant. It's about your blood levels. You can't see that, of course, right? And so that's what I recommend for all young men. Go and live an active lifestyle, right? You may need to turn off your phone right now and go outside and do something, right? But you get my point. You catch the drift, right? I think there may be a conspiracy that through the food supply, right, through the food that we eat, they somehow, you know, mess with our hormone levels. But that goes also for the jippy jabs they gave us. It goes for a lot of other things, vaccines in general. I can't say the V word anymore because I think you can say it once on TikTok. If I say it twice, I'm gonna get like banned or something, right? But you get the point, right? Yeah, and some women don't want to reproduce, but that's their problem then, right? How can we deal with cultural Marxism? All right, we know the left will fight till the end to keep it. I don't know. Did you see the big Antifa protest against Trump? No, there were just 5 people. if the left isn't funded, they won't do it. Left-wing people, they work for money, remember? They're slaves. So we deal with cultural Marxism by defunding it, basically. Yeah, without proper nutrition, the body can't synthesize testosterone. You need cholesterol. Cholesterol is a building block for testosterone. I bet you they didn't tell you that, right? They told you cholesterol was bad for you. No, eat 3 eggs a day. 3 eggs a day gives you cholesterol to build your testosterone building blocks. You need cholesterol. Eat eggs. Drink milk and eat eggs. That's part of the solution. They never tell you that. I made a whole video about this in my podcast. I used to do like a regular podcast where I discussed a certain topic, and I made a video about this, about cholesterol. It's a hoax. The belief that cholesterol is bad for you is a hoax. You can eat cholesterol in infinite amounts and you'll be fine. Sunlight, activity, diet, and regular sleep. You gotta go to bed and get up at the same time. Turns out people with irregular sleep hours, they are very damaged. Whereas if you sleep fixed hours every day, you have much better health than everyone else who doesn't do that. All right, I have some more topics that I wanted to talk about. So I told you about how Japan once deported 15,000 Iranians, and why we can't do that in Europe, right? I want to talk about the Indians now, because Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they're just going to import 15 million Indians from India. And even if they are actually educated, which I don't believe so, it's going to be catastrophic. They're there to phase out the white middle class, right? And it made me think of something that the Ottoman Empire did. So the Ottoman Empire tried to conquer Europe using its Turkish soldiers and its Janissaries and so on. Janissaries were white slaves that were raised as though they were Muslims among the Turks, like the Albanian leader Skanderbeg. And Skanderbeg escaped later and turned against the Muslims, and he converted back to Christianity, and he helped pause the Ottoman incursions into Europe so that the other European powers of the time were able to gather strengths, and then were able to defeat the Ottomans later. For example, at the Siege of Vienna and the Battle of Vienna. Now, why does any of this matter? When the Ottomans were defeated and ran out of soldiers to fight the Europeans with, they started hiring Indian mercenaries, or mercenaries from what is now Pakistan and India. The Indian mercenaries came to Europe to fight Europeans on European soil. And in the process, these Indians ended up raping quite a lot of European women. But the European women weren't all interested in having these half-brown children. And many of these half-brown children were discarded, basically sent to get lost in the woods. The descendants of those children of the raped white women who were raped by the Indian mercenaries for the Ottoman Empire, the descendants of those children became known as the Gypsies. True story. Mr. Daniel Natal explained this to me. Gypsies are descendants of the raped women who gave birth to the children of brown mercenaries working for the Ottomans, right? That's what the Gypsies are in Europe. So they are an invasive horde, right? It shows you that mass gang rape does not really work, because in such a case, when the women don't want these children, the children will eventually be discarded. They're not going to live with them, right? All right, I'm gonna go through a backlog of your comments over here, because I like interacting with the audience, right? So I probably sleep definitely 8 hours a day. Depends, if I do some lifting or boxing or something, then I'll sleep a little more. Right? Your white friend in the US was fired and replaced by Indians, and did he have to train them himself too, right? That's just so awful. They're just exploiting you for, you know, they don't care about you. It's just about money and costs. That's not a society. That's a Walmart. You're living in a shopping mall, and you're not the lowest cost provider, so they go with another one, right? The Turks in Western Turkey are quite Greekish, right? Like Greek people, because they are Greek people genetically, until the Turkmeni people, the Turkic peoples, conquered Turkey only in recent times, right? So make Western Turkey Greece again. The Irish travelers, yeah, they did the DNA recently. Turns out they thought that the Irish travelers were also like gypsies, descendants of these Indian people, but they're not. Irish travelers are 100% white people. They are, in fact, descendants of people who lost their homes in wars with the British. So the British drove them out of their towns, and they ended up having nowhere to live, and they became the Irish travelers. So that's a totally different story. It's not related to the gypsies at all. They're not gypsies. They're not Indian. Yeah, the travelers are white people, absolutely. Yeah. Do you think the Confederates should have won? Yeah. Because their flag is more awesome. No, I think, who was it? Tolstoy, Leo Tolstoy explained it, that when the, who'd you call them? The Union, the Yankees, when the Yankees conquered the southern states and defeated the Confederates, basically the Yankees imposed the financial slavery of New York onto all Americans. Although they say they abolished black slavery, meaning they removed the chains, they made everybody a financial slave. That's what Tolstoy said about it. I think he was just plain right about that, right? Right? And the guy who got fired, his white girlfriend was told by management that she can fire white men but not Asians. Okay, right? What's this all about? It's about fusing the American economy with their new host population. The US is led by, I hope everybody understands, Zyokon parasites. They really behave as parasites, and they used to parasite off of the European population, so they loved white people, and now they're going to parasite off of Indian population. And maybe even off of the Ethiopians and the Nigerians too in the future. Huh? But of course, it's not really working. They're not really improving anything. Things are just going to get worse. Yeah, not Asians, Indians, and Arabs. Yeah, I get it, yeah. What do you think of white Europeans organizing themselves? Well, we have to. We have an obligation to ourselves, to our ancestors, and to our future descendants. We must make a stand now. We are at the crossroads here. If we don't do anything, we go extinct. We have to go and get organized. And I believe that the religious angle is better than the economic or political angle. And that's because we need to unleash an emotional motivation, emotional force. You can't get that from people who work for money. They're too calculating, right? We need to have something outside of the economic sphere, outside, and also I believe that the whole political system in the West serves the economy. We need something outside of it where we find intense, deep emotions that help us overcome the fear of death, so we can face our enemies and defeat them. Is the rise of right-wing parties in Europe a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's mostly controlled opposition anyway, like Meloni or Le Pen or Alice Weidel. Notice they're all women, right? They're feminists, right? They're right-wing feminists who don't want men to rule the continent. So we're going to overthrow that nonsense and do away with it. We're going to impose some kind of a really hard, patriarchal, authoritarian theocracy to replace any dreams of feminism forever. Because I'm not interested in defeating feminism just so it can come back 50 years later. When we defeat feminism, we will do so in a way that it will never return. It will never return. I think Viktor Orban is in bed with Israel. So yeah, he does lots of good things for his people, the Hungarians, especially in funding, families and housing, and keeping the borders closed. But he's a Zionist, right? He's with Israel. All right, I've gone through all the topics I wanted to talk to you about. I've been speaking for 50 minutes now, but I'll go on a little bit till maybe 9 p.m. or so we can have a little audience chat, or maybe I'll look up some stuff to talk about, right? If you wanna support me financially, you can go to jmk.info and get a subscription there for my Substack newsletter, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/JohannesMK. Or you can even be a subscriber here on TikTok. I've got 3 subscribers now, I noticed. So you can be the 4th one if you feel like it, right? Anyway, financial contributions, of course, I'm starting to be a grifter now because of course I have to organize funding so that I can do more. I can get protection, I can do public speeches, I can get, I can start doing a lot more. That's just important that we have maybe I will start a foundation where we pool money in, or I start an association where you can be a member and have a membership dues, right? And then I'll have to, of course, sell you the perks and so on. I'll come to think of it. Wait. You guys know that I've written several books, right? So let me check the screen that not this one. Right? So I wrote this novel. It's mirrored, right? It's called Behold the Wanderer, a novel against modernity. My books are not very thick. They're this one is 180 pages or so. It's a novel about a guy who grows up in a world where the globalists have won. The whole world is basically destroyed as well. Everybody has migrated to Europe. The Europolis. It's one giant city full of skyscrapers, a bit of the sphere of the atmosphere of Blade Runner. Everybody's living in Europe, like 400 trillion people or so, right? 400 billion people. And the main character, this is a picture of the main character, but Wolf. He finds out they're living in this super economic material world where everything is about career, everything is about making money. And the main character discovers that there used to be a sort of science council who are hiding something. And what is it that they're hiding? They found evidence for the existence of God, but they decided to hide it and not tell anybody. So that's a bit of the premise of the book. And then Wolf who is an orphan. He's like a white guy living in a world full of brown people. He's like one of the rare, white people in the book are almost extinct. So he's like one of the few white guys, and he meets one of the few white women. They meet each other. There's some romantic stuff going on, right? And they join to begin to fight the Europolis, the science council, and they fight basically the globalists. It's basically a story about having revenge at the globalists. And then I got my other book. This is my bestseller. Not too thick either. Also, also something like 180 pages. 180 pages and a whole bunch of sources. This is a bit of a political work. Revival of the West, Securing a Future for European People. This is my bestseller on Amazon. And this book is really, the first chapters are really about debunking or deconstructing the idea of the global open society by George Soros, Henry Bergson, and Karl Popper. And I debunk it and I show you intelligently that the idea can't possibly work, because what do you do once you have built a global open society? It becomes a global gulag. You can't escape from it. If you feel oppressed in Germany, you could move to France. Maybe it's better there for you. But if you feel oppressed in the global open society, there's nowhere to run except to the gulags. You can only escape through the gulag, through death. And so that is why the whole idea of a global society with a world government and a world bank is nothing but a prison complex. You're building a prison. It's a bad idea. Man. And finally, one more book, Eternal Struggle. This is a philosophical work. Exposing the scientific worldview is the subtitle. Again, also something like 180 pages, I suppose. No, this is about 150 pages. Eternal Struggle is about, I have several arguments against the modern scientific worldview, and I detail them here, what they are. Let me look at the index and tell you what the arguments were. So, is science really, modern science says that the world is runs on the laws of physics, the immutable laws of physics, and unchanging constants. But is that really true, or is it rather more like the grammar of a language? And when the language changes, the laws have to change accordingly, right? Then there's what I call the problem of complete knowledge. Like, how on earth was it possible for this universe to be born with all the knowledge that it was going to need 15 billion years later to still be operating? That is beyond coincidence. In fact, it would be far easier for a non-material universe to come from nothing. And then there are several other topics that I write about. Anyway, Eternal Struggle for the Philosophically Minded People, if you want to read that book. Let me see, there was something on X over here. Here, by the way, there's an article on X that goes like, the pie and mash eateries in London are a bit of Cockney culture, that's working class Cockney culture, that has existed since Victorian times. But today, a dwindling number remain. Fewer than 40 pie and mash eateries remain, down from nearly 300 in the mid-19th century. What has happened? What's happened is, obviously, immigration. Like, this is from The Economist, they pretend like they don't know that if you bring in millions of immigrants, and London today is barely 1/3 native British, then your culture begins to fade out and it eventually disappears. Like I don't get it. What do you mean? They don't understand this? It's so weird, man. Did Mussolini have a Jewish wife? Oh, that's amazing. Alright, I'm looking at your comments to see what's going on here. Right? I don't know, what is the best time to do live streams? Maybe I should start them from 9 p.m. or so from now on. Maybe the later I get more viewers. I don't know. We'll see. The entire new Western regime is based on lies about how the world works. Yeah, I totally agree. Right. Yeah, maybe tell some stories about the old European tribes, huh? What story should I tell this time? Maybe I'll think of something in a minute or so. My unconscious brain is looking for a story. So. Why do nations compete with each other on the same thing? That is the problem, right? Maybe. Well, we compete for living space, land, fertile land, women, life, the basic resources we need, right? Am I a pan-Europeanist? I think Europe needs to have separate people, economies, languages, but bound by a shared faith. So it's more like a religious thing then. And globalism aspires to be global. We would deliberately, specifically not do that. We would have our ethno-religious nation states, right? And not so much an aspiration of wanting to include all Indians. We need to figure out a way where we can say to ourselves, hey, we can be independent. We don't need immigration. We don't need Islam, Hindus, Muslims. We don't need Asians. We don't need anybody really. We can just finally work on ourselves, because it doesn't mean by keeping others out doesn't mean we're not going to do nothing. We are going to work on our own inner strengths. We will have a warrior cult, for example, a warrior caste system. We will turn Europe into sort of a Spartan warrior state. There's tons of things for us to do. White men need to make themselves an export product again, right? So that we have a surplus of young white men and we send them out. Then we can be the migrants going to their countries, right? And taking over and demanding whatever we want from them. We need to stop being so weird about our own survival, right? Yeah, NATO wants us to die in the war against Russia, yeah. So here, someone says, you stream regular, not all notifications are passed on time or something, right? Yeah, I may have misplanned this one. I think on my TikTok it says I'm starting at 9 p.m. but I started earlier, so. A long form on Rumble, right? Anon, right? I haven't hit your For You page in ages, really. I don't know why not. I have good views. I have viral videos, but you know, the TikTok algorithm is always changing, so I always have to think about, oh, what's it doing now, right? I've got your comments over here, right. Oh, here another one. You haven't seen me in a while, right? So we can form our ethnostate anywhere on the planet. It doesn't matter where we are. Well, not anywhere. We can't do it in the Sahara Desert, not in Central Africa. Well, what I think matters to us a lot is we need to understand ourselves. We belong to a certain habitat that is basically anywhere from Gibraltar to Siberia, right? Or from Ireland to Vladivostok. And of course, North America may also be suitable, right? But white Australians always tell me that it's too hot there in Australia. It's just too hot. South Africa is also too hot for white people, technically, right? But it's okay to have outposts there if they can defend themselves, right? But Europe and Western Russia, and perhaps also Siberia, that whole territory is where we can thrive. It's wherever the birch trees grow. If you look up a map of the world where the birch trees grow, it's kind of the habitat of white people. That's where we thrive the best, right? Would you rather have a string diversified number one economy or a poor ethnostate? I would rather have a poor ethnostate that has a lot of time to invest in developing our personalities, our strengths, our religious connections, families, children. Yeah, poor doesn't mean low IQ, right? We would be smart people who spend more free time on developing themselves, making themselves so strong that we can withstand the rest of the world. I don't see a real problem there. Poor just means that we don't need money because we have skills, right? We're not going to be like India, where they are poor and they have no skills, or Africa, poor and no skills. Europe will be high skills. So high intelligence, high skills, high motivation. We don't need money. What we need is something to work on, right? How would it fix birth rates? If women don't have to work, they have housing, then, right? We just give young women housing, they will have more children. So it solves the birth rate problem almost automatically. The reason why women aren't having children in the West is because they have to work for houses they can't afford. If we would just make the radical decision of driving some boomers out of their homes and giving those homes to young white women, boom, they would have 5 kids each, you know? Yeah, we are going to be able to solve our problems because it's not even about quantity, it's about quality. Just look at India, 1.3 billion people, and they have like 2 gold medals at the Olympics, man. These people don't know, they have no physical prowess, you know? No, they don't have skills. China is in charge of Africa. Russia is in charge. France is still in charge. The US is in charge. The Africans themselves are not in charge. You know, I made a video once where I said that what Africa needs is entrepreneurs, technologists, right? Inventors and so on. My video got banned for racism. Like, screw you. If you can't handle the truth, of course you'll never succeed. Alright, I've run out of things to talk, and that means I better close up shop. So go check out my books on Amazon, and you can subscribe, jmk.info. You can go to my buymeacoffee.com/JohannesMK, or even subscribe here on my TikTok. You can be a subscriber here. I've got 3 subscribers over here, so you can be the 4th one. And I wish you all good luck, and I'm gonna log off. Bye bye.